Hi, I'm Min from PonderEd. Since there's a virus going around all over the world, that I'd like to talk about the how to increase your protection in terms of regular life. I'm not a medical specialist, so I'm not gonna be able to deal any like a treatment or diagnosis or anything. So symptoms I don't really know. It's more likely specialist area. But what I can do is I can talk about the defense mechanisms that we have in our body. So this is an image of the coronavirus that I took from National Institute of Health in the U.S. About the when they put up the article about the coronavirus. This is an image, so I'm sure that I shouldn't have any copyright issues. Now, since this is respiratory the related, now you have to think about the how you are breathing in and air. So basically, what happens in our body is that lungs are like external, exposed to outside completely. You can think of in that way because as soon as you inhale the air, it goes into the lung and fills everything, interior area of the lung. And that means that if you have dust around your rooms or around you, or anything that around you will going into the lungs. This is why that we sometimes see that the immune responses from next where before it goes into the lung, that this is the first signaling that how to try to defense because it is exposed to the air. Now defense mechanism has to be very high in terms of to protections for your body. So, well, once the virus is going into the lungs, then if it is infected and if they started multiplying, then what happens is once they are done with the host cell, then they break out the host cell. So when they break out the host cell, then immune system probably rushing in and then try to make the defense system the alert, the high alert, so that defense system can work on it. But when once it is multiplying and then actually giving the damages, then from my viewpoint, that from my thinking, that theory is it might be like a little bit for the immune system could overreact because you have like your cells debris in the damaged area as well as the viruses, and now these armies have to identify that the virus only, but it's kind of complicated because there's a cell debris and your cell itself is damaged in there and it doesn't look like alive, so your immune system also had to deal with this as well. So immune system kind of like boosting up, and then at the same time they will be having difficulties to identify that what is the real enemy. But that's my theory. But that's not what I'm gonna talk about. So we have to minimize that anything that comes into our lungs from our the regular daily life. So to do that, if you watch the media, then you can see that the washing hands is suggested, and whenever you touch something, and then using the masks or something like that. So other than these two, I'm gonna add a couple of more defense the tools that you can use. So that is right here in our body, which is nose. So this nose, we have tracks with a smaller area, smaller holes, and then rather than mouth, and then that means we can if you open up the mouth and then bring in the air, then the amount of the air in a given time is very large compared to the going through the nose. So you have to use this nose as a defense tools, the weapon against the virus or any bacteria or anything. Something like when you are having cold, you see that there's a nose, that the mucus coming in, and then they mixed with all these external coming inbound, all the materials, that the dust and viruses or bacteria all together and coming out of it. So this is what you have to use to defend yourself. So there's a hairs inside and mucuses inside. So there's a basic minimum defense system. So what I'm suggesting is like breathing through your nose. So you can use this defense mechanism. So in the mouse, you don't have much of the defense mechanism because air goes right through it. But from here in, you have a couple of steps of the defense mechanism. So this is the first step of the first tool that you might want to use against the virus. Basically, you have to breathe in and out through the nose. And second part is that when people generally suggest washing hands, but they never actually suggest to blow your nose. But I suggest that whenever you wash your hands, at the same time, you blow nose as often as possible, so that not as hard, because if you blow hard, then you might damage your ears. But at least you can blow out the some of the dust or viruses that coming in through your nose that is blocked in anywhere. Then you can bring it out by blowing nose. So whenever you wash your hands, you can blow out your nose as well, so that you can bring out this any kind of like a possible viruses or bacteria coming into your nose. So this is the second method, so that I'm suggesting. And with these two methods, then since this fighting disease is like a racing against the time and amount of the enemy. So let's say if you have like about 10 enemies coming at the same time, but your army that defending have only 2, then you are outnumbered. So this is the way that by breathing in through the nose and then blowing out whenever you have chances, then this will do is this will reduce the number of the viruses, even they're out there, that even it coming into your nose. Then you can minimize the number of the viruses, so that you are buying time, so that your defense system can work on it. Okay, this is the first suggestion. Second is, well, everybody probably knows that when you are in a bus or SkyTrain, like like a subway, then you can see that you are in the sealed area. And if you walking in the street during the winter, you can see that whenever you are breathing out, there's moisture coming out of it. So when you breathe out, that the moisture comes out, and then you can imagine that inside of the room, even though you cannot see, these moistures are spreading. What that means is that if you're close to the person who might be infected, then you'll have a high chance to get infections. But even though you are staying with a little bit farther distances, you could get infected. And sometimes you'll find that some of the people get infected, but some of the people aren't, even though they're in the same room or same bus. So this is the one that you have to think about, and then you have to make yourself aware that how you can defend yourself from there, like a covering, or the best way would be getting out of that bus or any rooms or anything, any area that you are in as soon as possible. Yes, everybody knows about this, but many of them sometimes ignore. The reason is because that sometimes, if I miss this bus, miss this bus, I might be late for school. Or if I miss this bus, I'll be late for the work or something like that. Well, you have a reason that you have to go there by time, and then you have to rush. So whenever you are trying to rush, then your brain will block you from logical thinking, and then it will force you to stay even though your brain says that I need to get out. But your body is inside of the bus, where even though you suspect that someone is infected. So what I'm suggesting here is you have to plan ahead, you have to move ahead. So let's say if you leave home like about 20 minutes early or something like that, then you have flexibility that if you find some situation, you can go around. Or you either that, or you have to think really, really logically and force yourself that, my life is more important I don't. If I'm infected, then I cannot even work. I cannot even go to school, and I cannot even. Sometimes I can even. I might even risk my life or something like that. So what you need to do is you need to really think through and then make a decision. But that's when you are in the situation already, and then you are in the situation where you are rushing. But what I'm suggesting is plan ahead. That means leave early or change the plan before something happens. And to do that, what you need to do is you need to be very diligent. If you are lazy and if you just respond to the any situation as it comes, and by rushing it, then your brain might block you from the situation to think logically. Okay, so that's another one. Now I have a third method. So basically, lung is more likely balloons that expanding and squeezing in and provide the to make the human to breathe. And to do that, it's not lung actually expanding and shrinking. It is diaphragm, which is muscle that makes your lung expanding and shrink. So what you need to do is you need to use the diaphragm and squeeze the lung as much as possible, so that you have to force all the any airs as much as possible from the lung from the to the outside. So basically, you have to use the diaphragm, push all the way up to the lungs to squeeze, and as you exhale, the breathing out. So this is one of the way that you can kind of make your all interior, any dust or anything, not just a virus that might stick into your lungs that is really farther away, that where the air doesn't really reach generally. You can squeeze out everything from there, and then so that you can push out these dust or the viruses as much as possible, so that leaving just a minimum of the dust or viruses inside of the lungs. Okay, so for that, well, there is a training that I put up in my website that you probably saw from the beginning. That my website, there's a training method about the breathing method about diaphragm breathing, but you can think of as a belly breathing, but in this case you have to reverse it. To squeeze the lungs as much as possible, you have to push your stomach. Belly breathing is generally like when you're inhaling, you push out your belly so that you can actually increase the room for the lungs to expand. But this you have to reverse it. That means that, well, you can the best way would be combining them. So breathing out with belly breathing, but when you're breathing out, you have to push all the way in so that your diaphragm pushes up your intestines, pushing your diaphragm, and your diaphragm pushes up the lungs so that lungs can be squeezed as much as possible. So with this method, well, actually using diaphragm will take about a systematic training, as I wrote in the article, but at least since there's a situation is not really like giving you the time to training. So in this case, I suggest you force yourself to use both of the belly breathing and pushing all the way in your stomach as much as possible, so that you can squeeze out all the airs. And these two methods, combining them to use to defend your body from these viruses that are spreading. Well, the best way would be, easiest and best way would be viruses not spreading. But since we cannot see the virus, we don't know what happens, right? So that's my suggestion about the defense mechanism for your body from these viruses. Okay, I will come back with, well, actually I made one lecture videos about teaching methodology before this one, but I'm uploading this one first since viruses are spreading. Okay, I will see you next time.